name is Travis. If you ever forget, just like give me a holler. And we are going to talk about guiding versus skill instruction today. And Mike Holme is, of course, joining us. Mike, would you mind introducing yourself, telling us a little bit about your riding experience and what you do in the mountain bike world?
Thanks, Travis. Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here for anybody willing to listen or watch this in the future. I live in Moab currently. I've been here for 27 years. And before that, I lived in Crested Butte, Colorado, and I grew up and went to school in a prior life in Minneapolis in the Midwest. Always a BMX kid, road cyclist, mountain biking, moved west because of the cycling, and had more dreams and ambitions of being a competitive, successful athlete or team manager or kind of that realm. But then I realized that teaching and helping people have better experiences and safer experiences and just having the aha and the joy of mountain biking really has become my life. About 18 years ago, my partner Maggie and I started a company. Actually, we took over an existing tour company in Moab. And so we're called Magpie Cycling, and we are a custom mountain bike adventure and instruction entity. And we're concessionaires in Canyonlands National Park. So we do multi-day backcountry interpretive tours, which include instruction and safety and backcountry cooking and so many different things, basically education focused. And for me, in 2013, when I took BICP level 1 and 2 together with Gail Gallagher, when I was still with IMBA at that point, and 1 and 2 were together in 4 days. And I still remember being really intimidated by the amount of material that came forth. And I was nervous about passing, even though my entire life was everything about what I was being presented. I was like, this is amazing. And it felt like validation of my life path thus far. And I felt like this is exactly what we need. This is exactly people that have dedicated themselves to the mountain bike and to the businesses associated with mountain bikes. I just felt so validated. So at that point, even my partner, Maggie, she had been guiding years before me and before we met. And, she was a skeptic for sure, because she was an experienced backcountry guide. She had seen a lot at that point. And I came back, I told her about the program. I signed her up for it when I got back, and she was like, okay, I guess I'll take it. And 15 minutes into day 1, she was like, this is hands down the coolest thing ever. And this does validate everything that we believe in. And so ever since then, our risk management, our program development, the way we run our day-to-day, whether it's guiding or skills-focused skills sessions at our bike park here in Moab, it is everything. And I feel like it's been an honor to be a part of the program and work with Shams and Nicole and Travis and so many other great ITs to help develop and progress all of this into something that actually matches something that's happening in the real world in many areas. It doesn't matter if you're a flatlander from the Midwest or California, or you're high in the mountains in Montana or Colorado or British Columbia or Peru or wherever it is. I just feel like this is really such a great place for people to start and find leadership and a thread that they can learn from no matter what direction they're looking to go in. And so, yeah, I'm open to discussing any questions or thoughts people have. I know Travis we have a general outline, and that kind of seems day to day to me. So I'm kind of looking forward to any questions. If anybody has an outline, if you want to ask deeper questions on what that outline might mean, I'd be curious. That's why I'm here. So I'm excited to share. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Mike. And yeah, as always, like as questions come up, feel free to ask them. We're here to just talk and get y'all as much as you guys as we can out of these talks. So please ask questions. And I guess our goal for tonight is just to primarily highlight the different strategies that we need in order to match the expectations of our participants, whether we're doing guiding or skill instruction. There'll be a couple other terms that we'll talk about in there, but yeah, we're going to run through some definitions of what we mean by guide, instructor, and coach. And then we're going to talk about managing expectations as like a larger concept, and then moving into how do we achieve these guiding goals, how do we achieve skill instruction goals, and how to identify when it's time to make adjustments in our program to benefit our participants. Cool. Does that sound like what you guys are looking for?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's great.
Awesome. Well, let's jump in. I'll start off with just the definition of guide. And so guides are primarily experienced facilitators that may be doing that for participants of a variety of skill levels. So we may be looking for, folks with local knowledge, confidence builders. It's kind of that person that can, have that open mind and meet a stranger and then have them leave feeling like a friend is a big role of that guide. And when we're talking about, so that's like, when we're talking about instructors, primarily thinking about it in that closed environment that we coach with the BICP. So that's when we're learning new skills that maybe we hadn't done, or learning from a person, or learning skills that we haven't done before from a specific person with those skill features in the cone zone in that very focused environment. And then Mike, do you want to talk about coaching?
Sure. Well, I appreciate you starting with definitions, because one thing that I've heard a lot of in my history of guiding is people's not misperception, but generally the differences in what people think guide means. Like, I don't need a guide. I don't need a guide. I just need somebody to carry my rainwear and sandwiches all day. Like, okay. And then you get out on the trail and you clean a move and they can't do it. And they're like, that's so amazing. You made it look so easy. You got any tips for that? And then you give them actually pointed tips, which would be coaching, because you can see where they're at. So you're not necessarily being an instructor at that stage. You're kind of like, okay. And then you get into trail coaching is what I call it. And that is, you have been observing them as a rider. You understand where their fundamental deficiencies may be or close to it, and you can notice where their strengths are. If you're helping them dial those things in, those things they already own, those things they already have, I call that coaching. Versus, I want to teach you a new hard skill in the cone zone, and I'm going to work on fundamental body behaviors, vision, focus, etc., before we can progress that at all and then take it to a trail. So that's, to me, there's a blend, like guiding, coaching, they're very close and they're very related, and they overlap on a day-to-day basis in my businesses. And instruction is therefore a very specific thing. If we sell a skills instruction session or camp, or it's a BICP course, then to me, that is instruction. Mm-hmm. It's like if somebody like Brian finishes up a level 2 with me in Moab, and the next day we get to go out on the trail, we're riding together. He has some, I see him riding. He's just like, dang it, I've never been able to make, that kind of move or whatever. And then, so now I'm not an instructor anymore on the trail with him after the BICP course. I'm now a coach. I might not even be guiding the trail experience, but we're riding together, and there's some feedback required or requested or suggested, and that to me would become coaching. So to me, guiding and coaching have overlap. Instructor and instruction is very specific, in my mind, it's very specific to that closed environment where you're not distracted. And that can be very hard to find at a trailhead anywhere these days.
Yeah. And Mike, what are the things that you find yourself coaching on the trail more? Is it like line choice type things, or what is it? What pops up regularly?
I'd say for the intermediate to advanced riders, it's definitely vision and line choice. And then further, like progressions of braking, when to brake, and more specifically, and would be when to not brake, meaning using the brakes, when to let go of your brakes and commit to that line choice. That's a difficult thing for people to see, process, and let happen when they're in a state of fear, for example. So if people are in a fear state, they're not going to learn anything from you. They're going to survive. They're in a survival emotional state. So therefore, all you can do is help them survive. You're not, so kind of like, let's do that again. Let's look at that again, but let's come up with a keyword to let go of those brakes. And maybe it's go, maybe it's, just go, something simple, one syllable, something that's just like, okay, when your front wheel gets to this point, I'm going to call out go, and you need to be off your brakes. And then that, but then we're talking about risk management is another important topic that we didn't really put in this outline. And that's where trail coaching really changes. I think you have to be intuitive and think on your feet quite, play by play. And you can find yourself in a world of trouble and somebody that's hurt, and it was nobody's fault. It was just circumstantial, but how can we avoid that is maybe a whole nother Zoom meeting topic, because risk management is.
Yeah. 2 weeks from now, we're doing a Jay Thomas, who's another instructor trainer out of Missouri. He's joining us, and he had this major incident. I think he's 2 hospitalizations, and we're going to talk through the incident from like the start of the skills assessment until it occurred, and then afterwards as well. So yeah, we'll definitely have some like really good risk management conversations coming up. I think that is the 27th, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, risk management is definitely something to always keep in mind, especially when if the skill level of our participants may be challenged by the trail that we're on, which can happen on any trail, really. It just depends on our participants. And yeah, Mike, I like how you brought up it's a lot of intuition, and there's a lot of gray area that comes with it. And we're just kind of like weighing their riding ability versus like the features ahead. And it's tough. That's something that we're doing as instructors, or as guides. Definitions. I got it.
Right.
Yeah.
I feel like, so back to your other question, like, so more advanced riders and such, it's braking or that type of thing, where I'm seeing their skills and using my intuition, because I've gotten to know them a little bit from our meeting. From the first time we met, I'm kind of gauging what is their self-preservation gauge like, and where are they on that gauge. Another thing about the risk management thing is also, kind of ego management. We talked a little bit earlier, Travis, about ego and such. And it's not only like, where are they at with their ego? Because people show up all the time and say, I want to learn how to do a bunny hop. I want to learn how to jump. You're like, okay, we'll go down to the dirt park here for 45 minutes, and we'll take a look at some basic fundamentals. And then we're going to introduce you to one bike length tabletop with nice uniform transitions. And, often I will never even take them to that jump, because I help them reveal to themselves that they're not ready. And I think that's another really creative thing to do whenever you're coaching or guiding anybody, is to not be the one that is telling them what is going on. You're opening doors, and you're offering the path there. So back to guided discovery in our program. Right. So you're guiding them. So this is tricky, right? That guiding somebody in through the instruction process, you're leading them on a path where they open the doors themselves. You're not the one telling them what they're not. One thing I really, really don't like in our industry is saying no, right? I'm a yes guy. You want skills? Yes. You want to book on Saturday? Yes. You want to ride all day? Yes. You want to whatever it is? Yes. If I have to say no, figure out how to say no by saying yes first. Like, figure it out. Try not to use negatives, and try to paint that picture and actually give them the brush. Have them paint the picture for themselves and reveal to them through fundamental assessment that they're really not ready, and that it would be dangerous to go off of a jump right now. And usually people are really receptive to that, because you bring them to a point of fear. You bring them to a point of like, whoa, I slipped off the pedals. It's like, well, why do you think you slipped off the pedals? What is it? Was it your foot wedge? Was it your body wedge? Was it a weak load? Was it any number of things that we could go through, which would basically help them be enlightened by themselves simply by our guidance.
And one thing that I like that you're mentioning, so last week we talked about this concept called the beginner's mind. And that's like a state of mind where you're ready to learn. You know that like you're not putting limitations on yourself or expectations on yourself about your learning. And sometimes when we become better riders, we have like expectations about ourselves, you know, like I want to learn how to jump. And the way, so that like that person may not have that full beginner's mind because they don't know all of the skills that go into jumping, for example. So then our goal as instructors or guides is to give them like a grasp on their scope of knowledge and riding ability. And then that's going to push them into that, like, okay, these are the things I need to learn, and motivate them to learn more. So I think, yeah, Mike, you just like threw that right out there. And that was, yeah, definitely something we spent a bit of time talking about last week, which is awesome. So yeah, you're coaching people into that beginner's mindset by saying yes, like what you said. That was really sweet.
Yeah, like this is where you're at. Like just last week, I was up in BC for the Trans BC Enduro, and I went into that with, I'm a beginner. I've never ridden this terrain. I have no idea what it's like to ride steep slabs. I have no idea what it's, I've never been there before. And I need to survive 6 days and 36,000 feet ascending. And if I had any ego involved there, I would have been badly wounded and probably in a hospital there. And, you know, who knows? But it was an eye-opening experience, and it was humbling. And I feel like that's important, to check our egos, both as participants, and put yourself in the position of being a participant. Go sign up for something that's scary. Go sign up for something that you don't think you're ready for. And in a way, I mean, I know other people can watch this, but like, test those other programs. See what those coaches do for you. See if they recognize where you're really at, and if they inform you that, you know, where you're really at, and that it's dangerous to progress to a certain level, or is their ego to get you to that jump no matter what. And that's what I was thinking about earlier, is you've got your participant's ego, but also it's really important as a guide, coach, or instructor, or any combination of the above, to keep yours in check. I've seen too much of that in the industry, and I feel like I want to lead as a humble, informed leader who is willing to engage and open to meeting new people and bringing myself down to their level, right? If they're a new rider, they've only been riding for 1 year, and they're on a $500 cheapo hardtail bike, it's like, cool, great bike. It's affordable, you're here. I remember riding a hardtail like that. Let's see what we can do, you know? And like, just because I'm on some ridiculous plastic bike that nobody can afford, it's like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't even matter. In fact, I like to have a cheaper bike for teaching, because it makes you less of a superhero or whatever, you know, have a cheap bike if you have people, you know, beginners. But anyway, just try to don't let your ego and what you want to succeed in that day push people to beyond the risk that's necessary.
And I think, yeah, adding to your point about, you know, you're having a less fancy bike to work with participants on, it kind of also adds to, like, when we're guiding, we're going to ride at the same level that our participants are riding at. Because if they see us, you know, taking what may not be a huge risk to us, you know, performing like a specific skill, and they'll see that, and then they may want to try that too, or, you know, based on your interactions, feel like they have the control to do that. So that's one way
they'll follow you.
Yeah, totally. So yeah, by riding at, you know, the level, like the bare minimum level that trail dictates, or that you're, you know, riding with your participants' riding level, they're going to stay quite a bit safer, because they're not going to risk trying to keep up with you, right? Like, that's on our control as a guide, is controlling the group in that way by controlling our ego and controlling how we ride.
Exactly. I'll often even tell people, hey, I really like what I've seen with you this morning, or over the last day or two, or however many sessions they've been out with us. And whole enchilada, for example, really common request here. A lot of different terrain, from 11,000 feet down to below 5,000 feet in the desert, 4 different ecosystems, a lot of different geology. I'm going to ride on my seat, sitting down for most of that anytime I have somebody like first timer down that. And I would never do it as a first ride. We have, you know, if you want to do that, you would need to have these qualifiers for us to take you down there. But the point I want to get to on that topic, Travis, is I will tell people, hey, I rode behind you for the last few miles. I threw out some keywords. You're really nailing all those fundamentals that we need for this trail. Your lunge drop looks really good. Your load and preload look great. You've got even the manual skills to initiate that front wheel up over things. Really looking good. So now I'm going to lead in front of you. I want you to follow my line, and I'm going to roll a line that I know you are capable of and that's safe for you to ride. Even a beginner rider on any trail, when I'm in front of them, as I start out after that safety talk that you learned in your level 1 ride leader, that it's another thing that I add to that is a confidence building and a further trust. You want them to trust you. If they don't trust you by the time you're pedaling, you've missed something big. So if you did, you can just at least try to catch up and make sure that as you depart on that ride, you can say, okay, I'm not going to be hot dogging out here today. That's not what this day is about for me. I'm going to ride lines that everybody here can ride and roll. There are no mandatory drops. There's no gap jumps, and there's nothing scary from what I've seen in our pre-ride assessment warm-ups here. If in doubt, follow my line exactly or as close as possible, and you'll have a great time. And so therefore I put myself in there. Like I said, I'm adapting and becoming them, just with a greater depth of knowledge. So if all of a sudden they start surprising me with other amazing skills, be like, okay, I guess we're going to some level 3 stuff right here, because you just manualed for like a block, like on a trail. So, okay, you have more skill than you told me about or whatever, and then you can adapt. But yeah, always reassuring and building that trust with people is super important.
Awesome. And yeah, so Mike, if let's say, on one of your rides, there's a group. Okay, let's see. I'm trying to set up a scenario. So what are some of so if we're, you got a guided ride planned, you're cruising down the trail, and one of the participants sees a feature that they're interested in doing, and you're like semi-confident in their skill level. And they want to ride it. Typically, like, what are the behaviors that you see? Will people stop and just like ask vague questions about it? I'm trying to like find out, when do we start to shift from that, basic guiding out on the trail into more direct coaching on the trail? Like, what behaviors have you noticed?
Well, in our environment here, where you're on a longer trail like the whole enchilada, and there's a lot of side hits, there's a lot of things happening. A lot of those things aren't immediately visible to tourists here. Unless you're following somebody who's hit those lines, there are things all over on the sides of the trail that you would not consider a line choice. However, I've been surprised plenty of times where there's no time to give them any coaching. You just hear something happen behind you, or they're going down the trail in front of you, because again, I do love to ride behind people, especially if I have one or two and I know I can keep them in check, right? I don't like, if I have more than 2 people, I don't guide from behind on an advanced trail. But if I'm riding, I keep mentioning whole enchilada or whatever, or even Ahab, more advanced stuff, I would actually like to be riding behind them, because then I feel like I'm riding with them and I can see what they're doing and I can see advanced efficiencies. So I guess before we go, so to back up on that, I would say a lot of it comes down to when you very first meet these people, like we talk about in the ride leader courses. You're starting to assess them the moment they show up in the parking lot. How did they drive their car into the parking lot? How did they park? Did they park lined up in the lines, or did they park a little bit rando? Did they have a hard time getting their bike off the car? Were they quick with it? Did they get out of the car with their helmet on? I mean, there's so many things that you can start thinking about. What is this person's personality, their excitement level? And then what do they request in the booking process? Like we have an extensive booking process. And so we want to know, like when our staff or ourselves, whenever we meet our guests, we have a really good idea of what we're getting involved with, and so do they. We've already marketed it. They've already seen it, at least some of the details. They've been questioned relatively heavily. And
Mike, could you
you have all of that information, and it comes down to intuition then. When you see them, like when you're seeing them in the parking lot, you see them, you start engaging with them, there's things you can get. What I'm looking for when I first meet a person is really nothing that they've written down or typed or filled out in any kind of form. I'm looking for more of a feeling of what and who they are, and how much do they trust me, and how much can I trust them? Because I'm not going to just start leading them down a technical trail and all of a sudden have them go off some booter because they saw it on YouTube and, you know, whatever, land on their head, or even stick it clean, and then they get overly confident and they want to hit everything else all the way down the trail all day long. It's like, that's not what we're here for today. You know, if you want to go do this tomorrow, I suggest hiring a shuttle. Today, you're on a guided ride with me, and I'll show you local lines. I'll point them out. I'll talk about them. But we may not be getting to a point where I'm actually going to teach you how to do that, because the risk is just too great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
what are
Brian? Yeah, you were going to say something.
What are some of the pre-questions that you guys go through? Because you said there's an extensive questionnaire that you give people before they ever come, so you have a good idea where they're at, what they're gonna be, where they're gonna be at the process, and then you look at them as they're coming up, how they're getting out of their car. What are some of those pre-questions to weed out some of the unknowns that we're all looking for, that's
a great question.
Pull those out?
Yeah, Brian, I think that's a really great question, and I will pull out a few of them here. I would say, so starting with basics, how long have you been riding? Where do you ride?
Yep.
Have you had mountain bike vacations to any other destinations? Have you ever been to Moab?
Yep.
Where else have you ridden on planet Earth? Have you had any coaching or instruction? Have you ever been on a guided ride before? Who do you mainly ride with? If it's, you know, do you ride with the local club? Do you ride with the local kids, or like the high school? Are you a NICA coach? Are you, you know, what is your involvement in mountain biking otherwise?
And if somebody does say, hey, I'm a NICA coach or something like that, do you give you got to give them some credit because they're out there doing it, like a leg up. But what about the person that is the NICA coach, but they struggle quite a bit as well? They're out there as a sweep or something like that.
Right.
How do we dig that out? When is that we wait until we're out on the trail and try to, or we might not find that out until.
So that, I mean, that could be handled, you know, we could learn that in the pre-ride assessment for sure. Like that could get highlighted pretty quick. And some of the other questions that I've included in my programs and clinics, I mean, even, yeah, like kids camps, all of it. I know what features are on the trails that we were likely to be going out on. And so questions just like, there's a 4-inch log in the trail. How do you get over it? And then there's a few options like get off and walk, lift up the front wheel, bend my elbows to absorb the bump. And then based on what they choose on that, it helps to give us, you know, more ideas of like how they're likely to behave when they're with us.
Yeah.
And similar with like roll down features, you know, the trails that we used most frequently, they had like, you know, a couple 8-inch roll down features or something. So we had a question about that on there. So I think like, and even if it's short answer or multiple choice or something, I think that helped us to get a grasp on, like Mike was saying, like, so not just assessing the riding level, but some of the multiple choice options were just send it. And so we knew the people that picked the just send it option, how they're likely to behave and what we can, you know, how much trust we can put in them to manage, to do some of the risk management on their own.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Cool. And go for it.
And so with that, when you pull a group together, it's typically not going to be, they're not all the same level. So totally. There's going to be one that is like they're at the level and can ride that trail, and then one that is going to struggle down the trail depending on it. And so my typical is like, we guide to the weakest rider. That's how we, based on speed, that gets us back on the right time, based on skill level. And that's what I typically do. But if it's not that person signing up, there's times to where I don't find that out until we start riding the trail. And so I have an assessment point. It's a climb out of our property that I assess the ride for this quarter mile for our warm up for our ride, to make sure where that I can pick that slowest person and start using them as my reference point. If I struggle with then the person that is at a higher level than that, I guess, is where because I end up going, like, working with the slower person more often than not, and then the person that has a higher level is going to be alone or off to the side, and that's group management, obviously, and guided riding.
And it can be challenging to match the expectations of all the riders. And I, especially with groups where there's like a clear difference in skill level, I think starting off like right off the bat, like when you're doing your introductions, or maybe as part of your safety talk, like frame the ride in, we're going to ride at a speed and on terrain that's going to be most comfortable for everybody. And that alone could help get into, or help that really, really good rider like adjust what they're expecting to get out of the ride.
So it's and that's I try to, like, with a mindset like, this is what we're doing, like, explaining where we're going, what we're doing, have the initial, we're going through the property, it's a dirt road that we are riding along, making sure everyone knows how to shift gears, and it's an assessment for the first 10 to 15 minutes, obviously. Gotta be, to figure out where that's at. But it's also when you have a huge split of how to make that work, and can you pull that out a little easier in a questionnaire at the beginning, being more extensive and asking more questions about each rider. Is that appropriate, or is would it be better to wait until they show up and start assessing and working through that?
For me and how I ran the business in West Virginia, like, the sooner that I can have, as much credible information as I can about my participants, and then like pass that on to either, I was guiding a bunch, so pass that on to myself or pass that on to my other guides, they can start to get an idea for trails that they want to take them on, what types of features to watch out for. So I think getting that information early is good. I mean, we don't want to have it be, I mean, and Mike, jump in. I don't know if we'd want like a 30 question questionnaire, but I think if you're specific about, asking about the features that you're likely to come across, I think that can be pretty beneficial.
Okay.
I feel like that's great, Travis, and I really appreciate the questions, Brian, and that perspective, because it's common in our industry. You'll have people that show up and they are mixed ability, and generally it's a group of friends or a family. They understand that, and the hot shot is not, he's going to be a little hot dog a little bit, but he also understands who he's with.
Yeah.
That's one reason that in my organization, we did not choose to operate what we call sheep herding tours. Like, we don't have just open group trips where we get 6 random guests coming together and all going on a ride. That does not happen. It took a lot longer for us to establish and become more of a boutique services provider. But I feel like overall, in the end, it's more of who we really wanted to be, and it's safer, because in the booking process, you might have the family that says, we're a family of 6. Our oldest is 13, and she is really into mountain biking, and she's really skilled, up to our 17-year-old son, who really doesn't care that much, but he wants to participate, etc. Then in that booking process, we'll actually offer, do you want to break up the group in such a way where you have 2 guides that day? We all start together, We all do the same pre-ride assessment. We all start off on the same journey and enjoying it together as a family with 2 proficient guides and coaches, instructors. And then we choose a trail network where then you get to a certain intersection and people can divert. And the more advanced rider goes with one of the guides. They do something really fun and challenging. They take photo and video of them so they can share it with the family later. You regroup up for a snack or a lunch break or a scenic viewpoint or all the above. And then you finish as a family unit. That's something that not all trail areas offer those options, but I feel like if you can be a creative operator and think about what you do have available as far as terrain, that's epic. It sounds, and it is expensive. It's not for everybody. You know, the budget family tourist isn't necessarily always going to go for that.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of people recognize that value right off the bat, like, oh, we could have that kind of coverage.
Yeah.
And we could start together, finish together. And they really love that. And it's almost that it's beyond value. It's like, it's everything they could have hoped for and more, because they didn't know that that was a possibility. So I know it's resource intensive. And there's even times when we have a group where it's unexpectedly like, wow, we got hot shot here. And, you know, I'll just make a call. It's like, do we have any more guides available? Can somebody come out to the trail and take this one away? Because they're going to make it dangerous out here and they're stressing me out, or one of the other guides, you know.
So
again,
just
resources.
Just yesterday, so I had a family that was like that had the one that booked everything. He's a big cross country rider, really good shape. Like then there's 14-year-old little cousin, 21-year-old sister, and both moms were together. His request to me was, take care of these guys. I want to just go for a ride and I'll meet back up with you. Is that I was skeptical of that, but once I saw him riding, I was like, okay, this is such a split that I'm going to be able to do my 5-mile loop down to the lake. I'm going to send you out over here. This is my route that I'm going to tell you, come over here. We're going to wait for you down at the lake. You meet us there. And then we ride back to the retreat together. You had mentioned doing that with an extra guide. I didn't have a resource to do that. And I didn't see that until the very last minute. So I made the decision, yes, okay, go do that. This is timing wise. You're going to be able to get out to this point and then come back and meet us for the ride back all together.
So I've run into that exact same situation, Brian. And I think what I did to handle it, you know, is like, so it was, I don't think it was that, I think it was like the parents and 2 kids. And one of the parents, you know, they wanted to just cover a bunch of ground and stuff. So I just signed them out of the program. I gave them, you know, like, hey, this is the route that we're going to have. But I had them sign out and not even be a part of it. And I'm curious how you feel about this, Mike. But so like I told him like where they could meet up with us, but by having him sign out of the program, it took him out of our care. And so that if something would have happened, if they had not signed out and something would have happened, that potentially could have come back on us. So yeah, I mean, I signed him out, took his family out for a ride. We met up at a couple viewpoints and everyone was pretty happy with it. So yeah, I mean, I think it was well handled for the resources at hand. Just, I would have, signed him out.
Done a sign out kind of thing, a release.
Yeah, I would think like, so we have what's called a leaving the tour agreement, like, and that's it.
All right.
Trail. So it's in my backpack with my other permits and paperwork.
Okay.
If somebody is out there and they're just being belligerent and they're like, well, fine, I'm here then. It's like, not before you sign this form.
Yeah.
And it's like a leaving, it's like a reverse waiver, you know, instead of signing that I'm going to participate, they're signing that I'm going to leave and I'm not in your care anymore.
Okay. No, that's I hadn't even.
They're on one of your.
Mike,
you could lose every. You know, that's not.
Mike, you were cutting out a little bit there. I hope, was it just me that heard the cutting out?
It was me too.
Okay.
Okay,
Mike, could you
be-
repeat the last thing you said and maybe just switch your video off for a minute so we can get rid of the cutting out.
Yeah, hopefully this will be better. Can you hear me now?
Totally. Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's really important to have leaving the tour document that they sign. And, you know, we haven't pulled these up very often. It's only happened maybe once or twice. But if somebody shows up, and again, if you catch it in time, like before you leave headquarters, so to speak, you might just say like, you know, it sounds like you'd be better off just riding on your own today. Why don't you just go off on your own? And then of course, I don't want to get in trouble with the admin that deals with the money and everything, because I can't just say like, why don't you go in the office there and get a refund for today and go ride by yourself, because I'd get drugged behind a truck for the rest of the day. But the point is, yeah, maybe it's, if you're so hot to get a ride in, you know, there's not a whole lot of point in you joining us, because we're going to be hanging out with your 12-year-old all day, you know, who's or whatever. And, you know, most people that book an expensive vacation like that for their whole family, it doesn't become cheap. And if that's what they want, and they're just like, yeah, I'm good at going on my own, I'm good at going on my own. So then basically it's agreed upon, and they never even get in your shuttlecraft to go begin the trail ride. They really never participate in your product that day. Yeah. So I guess just be careful, but have some type of a leaving the tour or leaving the ride form that somebody can sign.
Yeah, so, that's good. We'll
where we start a trail. Yeah. Like we start a trail up north of Moab a ways, and we generally shuttle up there and we do a ride with the whole family, but then there's a nice bike path that they can ride coming all the way back down to town. They can ride all the way back to town, virtually all downhill to their lodging. And some people do that, but I'm not willing to let them out of my sight or out of my care if they're on our product. So again, that's one of those situations where it's like, okay, I just need you to sign this form that as of, 3:30 p.m., you're now on the self-guided ride. And you're one of our bicycles, but you have no leadership. You have no, do you have a phone? Here's a map. Here's where to go. I'll definitely still guide them and lead them, but you just want to really cover your butt with liability these days.
Yeah, that was just the first time something like that had come up, and I was like, how do I didn't even think about having a release form or something like that for them to go off. But yeah, that's good.
And Brian and Carrie, are y'all providing bikes for your programs, or are participants bringing their own?
I'm providing bikes. I'm just doing one-on-one. So I have one bike a really nice bike for my people.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Sweet. Okay.
We have rental bikes we're teamed up with, it's called the Whitefish Bike Retreat, and they have a bike shop that they have teamed up with to rent a fleet of 18 to 20 bikes from them. So it's on property. They have 18 or 20 bikes from the bike shop that they rent out themselves. So they are the responsible party for the bikes, whereas we are only in charge of the instruction and the guiding. Okay. And that's what we're responsible for in our agreement. So cool. we don't do much with that. We do help with setup if needed, things like that, but we typically leave that to them and the customer, and then we take over after they've been fitted for their bike and helmets and different products like that. So
cool. Okay. Yeah, that's cool. Because Mike had mentioned like when I've only signed folks out of my programs a couple of times, and it does get a little bit more complicated when they have our equipment. But I think with how we had it at the shop that I was at, the rental folks would take care of the rental bikes that our participants were riding. So like that all lived in in a system. So we were able to like protect those assets. So I think that's an important thing to be aware of is if this happens, how are we going to protect what we have and have provided for the clinic?
Yep.
Awesome. Go for it.
I think that's really important, Travis. Just one more quick note on that. Very something that I would also recommend, whether they're your own bikes or you have an affiliate like Brian. I feel like it's really important to have service records on those bicycles and maintenance records, even if, so for Carrie, you just have one bike. Well, if you put new brake pads in it, or you bleed the brakes, or you tune it up and you wipe it down after every ride, have a book with that bicycle, every bicycle's serial number, and every time you do anything to that bicycle, write it down and sign it, or whoever did it, because we have our own fleet of bikes. And, people will do like, yeah, I crashed and we had somebody fall and there was a possible fractured, lower leg. And he claimed that the bike's rear brake didn't work sufficiently, when I know the brake was a brand new component and it totally worked. But, if something were to go wrong with a bicycle, I feel like it's a really big one that maybe not everybody thinks about or thinks it's that important, but man, it's so important, because you'll lose the whole fleet and your permits and everything if somebody sues you and decides to like actually make a point that that anybody was negligent in serving the bike, or that you were negligent in providing that machine for them for that given ride. So just be careful. That's my 2 cents on that one.
Totally.
That's great. Yeah, great advice. Thank you. Yeah.
Awesome. And so, like the outline that Mike mentioned, we've hit most of the points on that outline by just discussing, which I love. So I guess kind of one additional thing that I want to like hammer home is that, and it does kind of touch on ego again, but if you're bringing on like additional instructors, or, you yourself, when you're teaching or guiding, try to have the participant be very aware that it's all about them. I think that can go a really, really long ways to, creating repeat customers, making sure that they're satisfied with their experience and all of that. So I think that's like a big thing that does play into ego and everything. But yeah, making sure that whoever's taking this group out is doing it for the group and has that mentality will lead to much more positive experiences. And I think it also helps lend itself to better risk management as well. Because if we have guides or instructors that are out there, doing it because teaching mountain biking is cool and being able to ride bikes and get paid is super cool. Like if that's their reason for it, they may not think as intentionally about what's going to be best for the participant. They're just excited to be there doing that thing. So yeah, by being there, by making this whole program about them, it's also going to emphasize like their safety, and it'll help avoid any additional incidents like that. So I think that's like a take home point for, that was like when that dawned on me, because I had started teaching in the outdoor industry when I was younger, and it was fun and exciting. And I was like, I can't believe I get to do this all the time. And as soon as I made the switch to, okay, now this is for those participants, like I'm sharing something I love with the participants because it could benefit their life. I think that my mentality about it changed, or like, I think that I got better as an instructor and as a guide because I wasn't doing it as much for selfish reasons, So I think that's important. That's something to keep in mind. Mike, do you have anything to add on to that?
I just love everything you said there, Travis. I think it's a sign of maturity that when we drop our egos, because we all still have it. It's all still there, and it's healthy to a degree. But leading other people through adventure sports is not the place to necessarily have yourself out front. I like to use a rule where whether it's my interpretive delivery on any kind of interpretive topics or my instruction, etc. It's like, try to keep it at, try to keep yourself in check at 50%, give out maximum like half of, the awesome that you are. And then that way, if they tap into you more for later, you've got another half a pool depth to like keep throwing stuff out about how rad life is being a mountain bike guide. But
and then you seem so humble at the same time, which is great.
I think Humble Pie Adventure Tours would have been a better name for my business because it's how I believe. But it's also, I want to just point out a really important, another thing to just elaborate on there, especially those of you that might be dealing with any hiring or getting working with any other people in the future. One thing I've learned a lot about is how to hire and what to look for and what questions to ask. And
what are some of those? We are. That's it. We've hired 3 different people this year. The one has been awesome. And then others have just been sporadic. But I want to make sure that we are looking at the right candidates versus like, oh, you can come and do this day and help us out. Besides like having a little bit of background and knowing another friend, like what are like. I know the things that I want to look for, but what are some things that you would look for that would help with that?
Well, for me, like number one is customer service mindset, kind of in that service mindset. Like I'm here to help you, and I like people, and I like sharing, and I like teaching, like how can you find those things out? What questions would you ask in an interview in person or not? Or Zoom or whatever, to like tell me more about like I almost don't, it's kind of like back to that whole participant agreement we were talking about earlier, everything that they fill out in the form prior to booking a trip. Okay, that's great. Now that's in the back of my mind. When I meet them, I'm starting to work on intuition and what I'm feeling and sensing and everything else, a lot of other senses. Same with hiring. Show me a resume. That can be impressive all day long. But if they are, when it comes down to being around people, if they're just like the heart of darkness with a shiny coat of paint on it for an hour, that's not going to fool anybody for very long. You got to make sure you really know, are these people in this because they really they're inspired by teaching and sharing, or are they in it for themselves? And believe me, it's a constant struggle. And as we go on, we're in year 18 now. So, we've learned a lot. We've had a lot of hires that have come through BICP programs, et cetera. And, but once they get there, they're just like, they're too cool for school. They don't think they're getting enough work or whatever. Mm-hmm. And it's just like, well, they're expecting the industry to fit them versus, them to a niche industry. So, so that, I want to back up one and just reiterate one thing I was going for earlier, but got a little rambly there, is the other critical thing about that customer service and making sure that it's about the customer or the participant is this is one thing that not all staff and employees will really grasp. And that is long-term vision. Your business as a business owner, you want repeat business. You want to have 70% repeats, right? You want to have people coming back, if not every summer or every year, every other year, coming back and bringing 3 more friends. Like you want that repeat business. And so one thing that not all like young staff or ego-based staffers are going to be thinking about is that they're going to get this very same client next July for another whole enchilada and see how they're doing and see how they progressed because they went home and took some more classes or clinics with Travis or Jay or somebody else, and they want to come back next year and show you just how much better they've improved. Like in the meantime, you got the gratuity, you're done, you got a date that night, and you don't know if you'll ever see him again, and you're an employee and you don't care. Mm-hmm. But so that tells me a lot too. It's like I have some guides that will go till 6 p.m. and take people out to a swim in a creek afterwards and then go way above and beyond. And those are the guides, and we don't pay them anymore to do that. And then they go out and have a beer at the brewery later. And it's like, they're not getting paid more to be that customer service agent, but they get it. And those are our senior staff that have been with us for a decade, and they get requested season after season, and they have their own following. And I feel like that's where the guide's ego getting boosted is not a bad thing, right? So that's, again, we all do have ego, but you don't wear it out front. Just put it into the long play, right? Put it into the long game and be like, yeah, I'm the man and you want to, or the gal, and I want you to come back and be taking clinics from me for the next 10 years. And so that's like from a business owner perspective. I just wanted to note that because not everybody's going to get that.
And yeah, to add to all of that, I think I also emphasize the soft skills. You know, I mean, you know, interest in mountain biking is of course important, but I think that, yeah, if they have good customer service and soft skills, like we're mountain bike instructors, we can teach those things. And so, yeah, finding those folks that, yeah, have that solid mentality and they'll go above and beyond. And yeah, I look for the same stuff.
Yeah.
Cool.
Do we have time for a quick question?
Yeah.
So it sounds like the guiding and coaching really tend to go hand in hand. And I completely understand that. But since I'm a certified ride leader and not yet a level 1 instructor, where exactly do I draw the line between keeping people safe and giving them the very basics? Because my clients are brand new beginners. And I don't want to get into instruction.
I'm sorry, a rainstorm came out of nowhere and my roof vent is open in my van. I will be back in like 30 seconds. I'm gonna go.
We'll let Mike address this.
Right. So Carrie, just to refresh your question, you're curious about how to be leading somebody on a ride as a beginner, new rider with the fundamentals, but then stopping shy of getting into instruction, or
Exactly.
something to that effect. Yeah, I feel like that could be a great, honestly, it's an opportunity to like identify where they are progressing to and what they're ready for next. And what that would be an instruction session. So then you're kind of selling another session with them. And maybe that's where, you know, if you don't have that cert yet, that's okay. Maybe you have a friend or somebody else in the area that you're going to, you know, for a year or whatever, for whatever term until you do progress your trainings, you know, if that's what you desire. But it's more like you're going to be, I think honesty is really the best thing. If you have new riders and they're just all of a sudden like, wow, they're really picking up on this and they're really actually, they're ready for some skills that I'm not ready to teach them. Just again, honesty. If you just tell them, you know, like, you know what, you're ready to progress to some skills that I am not yet certified to teach you because that would put me and my program at risk. But here's somebody who can help you with that. And I'll be there soon. I need to get, you know, I know what you need to do, but if I tell you that, it could put my whole entity at risk. And just have honesty and let them know where you're at with your risk management, because, you know, that you want to keep growing and you want them to keep inquiring back with you. And if you have somebody that you can refer them to, and I always stress, like, that person you're referring to really needs to be somebody that you really believe in, as if they are your top employee. You don't want to refer anybody to some fly-by-night situation because you're only as good as your referrals. So just, you know, if you have that availability, somebody that you really appreciate in your community or nearby that you can send that person to, because if anything, they're going to be like, wow, I really appreciate your honesty. That was such a great ride and introduction to mountain biking. I'm going to go over and see Travis now and take a clinic from him for a couple of weeks or a summer. And then that person is going to be looking at Carrie like, Carrie led me in the right direction. And Carrie's going to be like, oh, by the way, I'm now certified. And they're going to be like, I always loved your style. I'm going to come and take clinics with you now that you're certified and you're closer to home or whatever. You know what I mean? But being honest early and just letting them know about risk management and things that we say in the curriculum of BICP for the ITs and for all the certified people. You can use some of that lingo with your guests if it's appropriate, right? Tell them like, that's beyond the scope of my group management or my risk management or whatnot. So yeah,
That's
keep
perfect.
moving
That
forward.
helps a lot. Thank you so much.
Awesome. My pleasure.
Awesome. Well, any other thoughts or questions before we wrap it up for the night? I'm excited to go back and watch the recording to see that, to listen to that answer in full. I got the last little gist of it, but it's a great question. So I'm excited to hear Mike's response, but awesome. So, to kind of recap, we touched on some different definitions on the roles that we can play like depending on our program. We primarily talked about guiding, which is awesome, but we did set up that, the instructor is that closed setting. We're actually learning new skills, not simply honing already existing skills like coaching on the trail. And then I think kind of the big things that we were, kind of just driving home through the conversation is guiding requires a lot of intuition, and you're there facilitating an experience for whoever signed up for your program. And that takes a lot of adjustments and a lot of soft skills to be successful in that. Anything else to add to the wrap up, Mike?
Well, I love how you put all that, Travis. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here and have a conversation. And I feel like that is one thing I did want to touch on earlier was with that intuition is having that constant contingency plan, like having that chess game in your head, being on the move, like thinking on your feet, being situationally aware. And, these are things that are not really a part of our social fabric, as much as I hate to say it. Social awareness and situational awareness is something that if you can work on that in yourself as a leader of any kind, right, at any level, that is something that is going to help you shine, and it's going to help people follow you because it's not necessarily like being the wittiest one at the party with jokes, but if you have that quote unquote, that wit or that quick thinking on your feet as a leader, and as things are working out play by play during any type of product delivery, that stands out. That really stands out. And people notice that, and you will see amazing reviews online and I just think that's important to remember. There is no going to work in this industry at 9 a.m. and thinking it's going to be just another Monday or Tuesday, because every single hour is different. Mm-hmm. So have a lot of fun. If anybody has any questions, I'm a continuing resource. You all can find me through BICP and send me messages. I'd be happy to join you on any other talks too, Travis, because we barely touched on an hour goes by fast. So
it does. It goes by so fast.
I appreciate your
Mike,
host.
If there's any specific things that you want to talk about, or, if, of course, always welcoming suggestions. Brian, Carey, throw some ideas out there. It'd be great to have you back on, Mike.
Great.
Awesome.
I appreciate y'all. Good to see you.
Sorry, I interrupted you, Mike.
Oh, go ahead. I'm just talking too much.
No, I was just going to say thank you all for coming. And next week, we are going to be talking about teaching on a team and how to manage, working with other instructors at the same time to make sure to try to avoid conflict between instructors, present a nice professional view of your business from your participants. So definitely going to be a lot of good stuff in there. So for sure, come back. And Catherine Neff, who runs Ride Inspired Coaching and is also an instructor trainer for the BICP, is going to be joining us for that one. We taught a couple level 1 courses together, and it went great. And I was like, all right, Catherine, we gotta put this together. So definitely looking forward to next week. And feel free. Y'all have my contact info. Feel free to give me a holler if you need anything.
Great. Thank you, Travis.
So much.
Y'all have a good night. Thanks again, Mike.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.